Mm-hmm.
I have on the count on,
Aren't those delicious?
They go really well when you just add an apple.
leave with the Vermont Democratic Party. The one on the website is the 127.
Is it on?
Recording in progress.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Manchester Select Board meeting for October 21st, 2025. There's a sign in on the table. If you didn't sign it on the way in, please do so before you leave, so we have a record of who was here in attendance this evening. I'll ask everyone to stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
This is the point in the meeting where if anyone wants to speak about something that's not on the agenda, this would be the time to raise your hand. We will limit comments to 5 minutes per speaker. And I would ask that any questions or comments be directed to the chair. And if I need to direct it somewhere else to get the appropriate answer, I'll do so. Are there any public comments? Well, that's got to be a first. That's too bad, because this is usually the most entertaining part of the meeting. I will ask for approval of the minutes from October 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. That's unanimous. Agenda item number 4, liquor license applications, Scott.
We have several of them tonight. One's a first-class liquor license for, excuse me, Hickory House LLC at 145 Elm Street, a new business. First-class liquor license renewal for the Colburn Cafe on 75 Bonnet Street, and then a first and third-class liquor license renewal for the Dorset Maple Reserve Farm Store at 4927 Main Street.
And as usual, these have been run through the normal channels and
They have, yeah, no issues, yeah.
You'll entertain a motion.
sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the liquor licenses as presented.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any abstentions? Okay, we can take them all at once. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and all were unanimous. Bennington County Regional Planning Commission is walking us through the discussion of the tier 1A versus and 1B land use designations. And we are already tier 1A, and we may vote to become a 1B designation.
So, yep, so Nick,
Nick is here to lead us through that discussion. Welcome, Nick. Nick Zion, BCRC.
Thank you for having me. So Scott circulated my slides from the Planning Commission, and the biggest point here is that it's one, you're currently actually a tier 2 for your center. Everyone who has an existing center is a tier 2 center, but you have to opt into this 1B, and then you can consider 1A at some later point. Well, right now the 1A roles are not complete, but it's like an extra stage beyond 1B. So the important thing about tier 1B is that it exempts from Act 250 projects that are above or up to 50 units on less than 10 acres of land. And that will then make it so your planning commissions and DRB's process is the primary process for these Act 250, or for what some of these projects that would have been Act 250 projects in the past. They must be housing, they must be or mixed use, they must be in the designated downtown or growth area. So the downtown and the growth area is designated on the future land use maps. That is a different process. But we went through this with the Planning Commission and have worked on the boundaries of this downtown and growth center area. And it is the Planning Commission and Housing Task Force's recommendation that we move forward with tier 1B for both of the downtown and the growth area. Largely, that covers all of the traditional downtown of Manchester, from Main Street and Bonnet Street and Depot Street, along with Richville Road down to the post office now. And so a lot of that is based on your existing zoning, but also primarily it's based on where your water and sewer lines are. So it can only really exist in places that have water, sewer, in some cases, particularly good septic soils. So that's the gist of it. It's a very kind of simple thing, opting out of Act 250 or opting in to be out of Act 250 for projects that are not super large, so that are less than 50 units and on less than 10 acres of land. So largely infill, largely in your center, almost entirely on your water and sewer mains. So that's the gist of it. And what you have before you is a opportunity to pass a resolution that would then opt you into tier 1B for the designated areas.
and this is separate from what the tier 3 discussion we will have briefly after the decision on the tier 1.
Absolutely. So Act 181 has they tried to has a balanced Act 250 reform, that reduces Act 250 in areas that have existing development, primarily around water sewer, and then increases Act 250 in some of those areas that really need protecting, areas of particularly important natural resources, things like that. So that was what the legislature did. That's the framework within which we're working. But yeah, 1B is different and distinct from that. But it's meant to kind of counterbalance some of that increase in the expansion of the jurisdiction.
So just to refresh a little bit of everyone's memory here, the Housing Task Force approached Nick and Samantha about a year ago, because when the opportunity of thinking about the Airport Road property came up, we saw an opportunity to potentially make that a more feasible property utilizing some of these exemptions. And we looked at the program guidelines. We worked with the Vermont Housing and Community Development Department, as well as BCRC, to kind of get the ball rolling. And essentially, this looks like, I think we talked, maybe briefly touched on this. It includes parcels all the way up to here because of our sewer, water and sewer. It includes the post office in that area because by definition, and Nick, correct me if I remember the idea correctly, is that, village centers include banks and post offices and lawyers and businesses, and that's in that area. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the neighborhood designation to reach the airport road property, mainly because of its distance and its lack of infrastructure to that property. But I think that the opportunities that are coming out of this extension, it's not changing our zoning at all. It's just giving a more clear picture of how we get housing built in our community.
So relative to the airport parcel, if there were a proposal and in that proposal, there was extension of infrastructure, water, sewer, could it be included in the neighborhood?
That would have to be part of an extension at a later date. So it'd be something that would be viable. And if there's a reason for an extension of the 1B area, this is it. But it's going to take some planning work to get to that point. So it's going to take inclusion of sidewalks further out in your capital plans. It's going to take zoning that, and probably reform of your MU2 zone to make that a much more viable perspective for the state, and then clarity in planning for the water sewer. But this is more, so 1B right now is more about the, say, archetypical 7-unit project on a relatively small lot out on the edge of the village, say out in this direction toward the town hall. That would be much more of the modal thing we're talking about of where this matters. Because right now, a 7-unit apartment would automatically require Act 250. It's more than 6 units. It's in jurisdiction. So it's those kind of projects that fit more in the natural fabric of your downtown that we're facing this regulatory cliff of when you go from 6 to 7 units, you face an enormous regulatory burden. So that makes anything from 6 to 10 units really hard to make work. So that's what this is more about. And if we can work on an extension toward the airport, I'm just hoping that we can be able, that we can get the plans to a place where we can justify an extension of that as part of future round. But we don't know how or when revisions to this map of that scale will be viable, I'll say. That's going to require revisions to the regional plan. And we're waiting for regulatory guidance on that.
Thank you.
I have a question, Nick. If this is kind of putting more of the onus on the local municipal boards to make some of these decisions, what is BCRC or the state doing to kind of help them with like training and understanding some of the nuances that could be a little bit tricky?
Yeah. And there's a checkbox here on this form actually that says, hey, you have a regional commission. You're going to call us when things get tricky. You're a town that really does have a lot of administrative capacity in your zoning office. So the system was designed around towns that have less administrative capacity than you guys have. But you guys have us, you have the league to advise you on these 250 cases. But importantly, because there's not a second layer of regulation on this, you're relying on, as a town, the regulations that you have and that you already know. So it's a little bit more clear to your locality that you're only working with one set of rules. That set of rules is the set of rules you work with all the time. It should be very manageable. It's designed to be very manageable by keeping it to your own rules.
Nick, does this just pertain to housing or would commercial properties benefit from this also?
It's housing or mixed use, and the mixed use language here is yet to be really well defined of like what is it percentage of square feet? Is it some other measure that says how much commercial can be in this? But yeah, but it does definitely have a mixed use component at least. It does not fully apply to fully commercial properties.
And I'm thinking of when I was on the DRB, when the supermarket, Price Chopper wanted to expand and ran into a lot of Act 250 issues in addition to some other issues. Would this pertain to that at all?
Not really. Not unless they were like building a couple of floors of apartments on top of the grocery store or something like that. You could make a project like that be a thing. But a pure commercial project would not be entitled to regulatory relief under 1B. That would be a really cool conversation. It's one that is being had among planners and state officials on the next step of this reform effort to Act 250. But there was not a consensus in the legislature on this in this round.
Thank you.
I actually have a question, Nick. How does or if at all, does the governor's executive order change any of the pieces of this process? Are there any cause and effects from that?
I don't see any meaningful cause and effects in as much as the governor's order is about build code, energy code, and wetlands. There's a couple other pieces to this, but as it pertains to this, yes. Wetlands, okay, a couple more projects may be less jurisdictional, or may require less it would rely on your town setbacks being higher than the state standard, for instance. But build code, energy code, those are just, okay, a couple more of these projects pencil because you're facing a slightly different, less burdensome energy code or build code. It's about giving choice within the energy code, according to my read on this. So that choice is generally a downward choice in regulatory burden. That was why the governor did it. So we expect that if anything, it does dovetail possibly a little bit of like, this makes some projects a little bit more viable. The governor's changes make some projects a little bit more viable. So I don't know. They complements, but they don't seem like they have a lot of direct effect on each other.
I'll just say that the Housing Task Force, we spent a lot of time discussing this, and we thought this was a way to really make it more simple. And there's no harm in we're not going against like I said, not going against our own zoning. We're just making it, I think you put it perfectly, Nick, where there's not two jurisdictions for these certain types of projects. So removing barriers for housing to be potentially built.
I think it has the potential to reduce the cost to the developer and expedite the process. So
Absolutely.
those are both positive things.
Mhm.
And on the downside, of course, you have to believe that we would have to believe that we have the staffing and the ability to deal with all the very complicated issues without relying on the state to do that for us. So.
Sure. I think Nick made a good point that, the understanding that we have a resource in the BCRC or VLCT to take some of these too. We don't necessarily have to go to the state of Vermont. We can go to our regional organization to ask these questions and clarifications.
And the other point is if you go to the state right now, they don't have an answer.
Right.
Because it's still being defined.
Right.
Are there any unintended consequences, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
There could be, you know, looking at recent proposals for development, some that are maybe moving forward, some not. If it were solely to be determined based on our bylaws, it might cut out contemplation of what the town plan says. One of the 10 criteria under Act 250 is, does it conform to the town plan? We don't have the local ability to apply the town plan as a regulatory document. It's not supposed to be a regulatory document, but under Act 250, it becomes one. So
But
there's
if
that, most of the other complications such as wetlands and environmental impacts, the state would be involved anyways. We wouldn't lose that. So I don't think I'm not seeing a lot.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, this particular, the neighborhood designation that was part of this would actually exclude, you know, the one property that comes to mind, obviously, that's on the table right now is Blackacre, right? And that property on Richville is not part of the neighborhood designation. Is that correct?
So it is actually, let me double. It's not part of the neighborhood designation. It's part of the growth area. But
Okay, you're right.
importantly, that wouldn't be affected by any of this because it's under existing planning documentation.
It wouldn't have any effect.
So
Any other questions? Questions?
I don't know how this works. Am I allowed to raise my hand?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
But I'd ask if you go, he can hear you better. There's a microphone on the podium.
Hi, Val Ryan. I guess my one question is, and you touched upon it just now, Ivan, are you guys taking into consideration the current processes that are being put in place for the Watershed Act, which should be going into place in 2 years?
So this doesn't, but ultimately in part because you guys already have a recorder regulation. So it's something that will be like, it's considered, certainly. We certainly looked at river corridors as part of our mapping effort that made the map, then set the borders of the higher or of the 1B. But yeah, that is still way too early in the regulatory rulemaking to be fully informing this process, but it's one that the state gives guidance on this about river corridors, and it's mostly about, is your town already enforcing a townwide river corridor rule? And thankfully, Manchester is, so we don't have to worry about that quite as much as some of the other towns that this
Thank
may
you,
be
Nick.
consideration for.
Any other questions? We
have a resolution.
We do, yes. And the expectation is that we're going to do something with this resolution. So I want people to ask questions if they have any. Yeah.
I'd like to, I move to accept the resolution. Creating a designation of a tier 1B for.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I think it might be helpful for people if we read the resolution.
Yeah.
So.
I was afraid you were gonna say that. So in accordance with Vermont statute NBSA section 6033, a municipality may request tier 1B status for the purposes of Act 250 jurisdiction. Whereas the municipality has a duly adopted and approved plan and a planning process that is confirmed in accordance with 24 VSA 4350. Whereas the municipality has adopted permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws in accordance with 24 VSA 4414, 18, and 42. Whereas the area excludes identified flood hazard and fluvial erosion areas, except those areas containing pre-existing development and areas suitable for infill development. Whereas the municipality has water supply, wastewater infrastructure, or soils that can accommodate a community system of compact housing development in the area proposed for Tier 1B. Whereas the municipality has municipal staff, municipal officials, or contracted capacity adequate to support development review and zoning administration in the Tier 1B area in accordance with 6033C6 and as evidenced by all if the following: appointed and contracted zoning administrator, yearly budget to support administration of development regulations, including enforcement or appeals as needed, municipal staff and volunteers who can attend training as requested, a ZA and DRB, regularly processing applications within the required timelines, and technical assistance is available for projects that exceed normal capacity or knowledge by one or more of the following, and we checked 3 of the boxes, which is town attorney, a regional planning commission, and VLCT. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the municipality hereby requests to have the downtown center and planned growth area mapped for Tier 1B status, adopted at a duly noticed public meeting held on October 21st, 2025.
My only question on it is, and I didn't see this when I was reading through, in the final paragraph under the bullet points, just prior to the bullet points, it says there needs to be evidenced by all if the following,
It should
and
be
maybe that
of.
should be all of the
Should
following.
be of.
I mean, it's making a very strong statement there because all is completely capitalized.
All of the following, evidenced by all of the following. So you should make that correction before we sign it.
Because I'm not sure if using the word if there changes the meaning. I don't think it does, but
Well, it definitely makes it a little weird.
that seems a little strange, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was legal speak.
No, in my version right now. It's of, and I'm not sure how it became an if somewhere. Maybe in one of the bouncing of email attachments around it.
Do we have the ability to make a clean copy for?
Yeah, I'll send this clean copy over to Scott, and we can
Okay.
we can get it processed.
If we can approve it tonight, we'll just sign it.
You could Nick, could you send it to me and I can just print it and then we can do
Yeah.
it before the night?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we can go ahead and approve the resolution if you so desire with that one correction.
So we have a motion in a second.
Okay, I think that covers it because it's just a correction. It's not a substantive change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Appears to be 5-0 and
So we'll get to print that out, get you.
we got a clean copy before the end of the meeting. We'll get it signed.
You'll have a clean copy in 10 seconds if I.
So, before we let Nick go, I'm gonna have him comment on Tier 3. And, I've been in communication with, VLCT twice in the last week about Tier 3. And they were very, very concerned about Tier 3, the way it was originally proposed. It's already been scaled back a little bit since that initial conversation. And tomorrow night, in Rutland is the second of 4 meetings that they're holding for public input. This one's being held at the Rutland Regional Planning Commission at 16 Evelyn Street and second floor. But you can zoom in also. And it's from 6 to 8 o'clock. And they, like I said, they're holding 4 of these meetings around the state. Then they will gather that information and restructure Tier 3 once again and do that another time thereafter before they come to like final consensus on how they're going to make that work. And this is the land use review board. So Nick, if you have other to add, please do so.
I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think really of all of our towns, you guys have a reasonable amount of concern based on the current maps, in as much as the jurisdictional areas as currently proposed is the area effectively between Richville Road and the highway, approximately. So that's the area of concern for Manchester. That's where jurisdiction would be expanded. So if you guys have planning concerns for that, like south of the airport, well south of the airport, but from I don't know, the let me look from Lybrook Road on to where the road turns to the west there, that's an expansion in jurisdiction. So that's, if there is concern, that's where the concern is, but it doesn't seem like you guys have a lot of development pressure there, so that may not be much of a concern at all. And a lot of that is highway median. But yeah, beyond that, the early drafts of this were very worrisome, to say the least. And importantly, we do know that the state is trying to pare this back in the places that it makes sense. But like your downtown, I imagine, would not have any meaningful impacts of tier 3. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'll be following it. Feel free to ping us at any point if you want the updates. But I will not be at tomorrow's, but I'll be at the one next week. And look forward to following this every dollar minutes. So yeah, let us know if you want updates. We can follow up if you have any particular areas of concern.
Can you come back to us after all the meetings have been conducted and just kind of give us an update? Do you mind doing that?
I could send an email to Scott. I think that would be the easier way to do that, with some like verbal or with some written comments that might summarize the changes. That's, but I'm not sure like how big these impacts are going to really be for you guys overall.
We'll be getting feedback and direction from the league on this one, because they're all
Yeah.
over. They initially want us to be prepared to go to bat and against the tier 3 exposure that they were proposing. But it's already been scaled back, and now after these public meetings, they're anticipating it to be scaled back even further. So
The league's done a lot of really great work on this. They've absolutely taken the lead on behalf of municipalities for this and made sure it wasn't going to vastly expand jurisdiction when in areas that really don't make sense. So yeah, I really trust the league a lot on this, and I think they'll absolutely be representing you really well.
I have it, but this one is not the one with our letterhead.
do you need the letterhead, Nick?
No, not at all.
Yeah, actually, the one that I had didn't have our letterhead either.
Oh, did it? I thought I had placed
Did
it.
not.
Oh, is it just the one signature or the attestation?
It's just one signature.
Are you both?
We had one with 5 signatures.
Yeah, the one that I had 5. I had
But it says the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an earlier version of this floating around that I think was the first one that I sent. It's the same.
Quick for me.
But
Okay, so one signature is adequate, Nick?
yep, one signature is adequate. This is the model that is being used statewide and has been accepted by the Land Use Review Board and a couple other counties that are already further along.
There it is. And one signature is on the back.
Oh, there it is.
One signature is adequate.
Yeah, the minutes of this meeting are really what's gonna matter ultimately.
Let me just
That
your word is changed.
Your word.
That's fine, yeah.
Just sign it off.
Did you
Tell
check
you what.
It says all of the following.
all of versus if?
Oh, good. Yes, definitely.
Back in the old days, I would have taken a couple of months. We would have reconvened next year to sign that.
Okay, all set?
I'll scan and send it to you, Nick, tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. The next agenda item is with the Manchester Community Library and the potential for a memorandum of understanding. A couple of meetings ago, we met our new executive director for the library. And I think I kind of hit him up beside the head with a brief history of municipal funding for the library. And this is an interesting proposal in it, and some of the concerns that I raised relative to the way that we provide the municipal funding to the library would be addressed through this sort of an approach. So just leading into it, I kind of like it. And who's going to lead the discussion on this?
Well, I'll start and then Matt can jump in if he wants. So after the last year's budget season, we were left kind of scratching our heads and didn't really want to go through this slightly antagonistic process again. So how are we going to solve it? So Heidi and Laurie and I met with, well, it was Ed at the time and Rona Cast, the trustee chair. So we hammered out through a couple meetings this type of agreement. We worked out some details and they sat on it and went through some discussion with their full board, came back with some proposals, and we went back to them and we've come up with this agreement. And basically what it is it's a 3-year kind of a lock-in agreement. With the end of the 3 years, both parties would have to opt back in for renewal purposes if they wanted to. But it gives us, you know, some known expenses that we can build into the budget, and the same thing on their end. And it creates a trust and cooperation and avoids that antagonistic situation. And it still allows the voters to make the final decision anyway. So, Matt, if you wanted to comment, feel free.
We pretty much summarized it. And from our perspective, you know, we are in the practice of planning 3 years out with our budget. Obviously, I think both parties are interested in budget predictability, stability, and partnership. So we're 10 years into this called an experiment as a public library, Manchester Community Library at our new location. I think we have a lot of stability. Some of the variables are really better known for us. So we think, you know, when the select board approached us about doing this 3-year agreement, it made a lot of sense to us. We discussed it. You know, I think for a couple of years, this has been something we've been thinking about. And when we saw this MOU, we think it makes a lot of sense. We think the partnership between the library and the town is very strong, increasingly strong. And so, yeah, we're very interested in working with you in this way. And I think as Scott said, it just reinforces the trust and the partnership. So we'd be happy to proceed with this. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Here, Matt. A prominent Manchester citizen making his presence felt. Yeah, just going back with the history that I gave last time, it has created, I won't say an antagonistic environment, but there seemed to be a lack of control on this end as to what the final numbers would be. And for an example, we made several changes over time. The voted appropriation for the Manchester Community Library is by far the largest voted appropriation that we have. And yet we seem to have absolutely no control over what those numbers were. And as an example, it escalated rapidly over certain times and then stayed stable over others, which we appreciated. But until the petition, it required, if there was a change in the request, it requires under our rules that a petition be circulated. And so the town loves the library. It's a great addition to our community, and people would easily, they'd get the required number of signatures, even if there was an extremely large increase in the request. But we wouldn't have any input into that. That would automatically put that as an insertion into our voted appropriations. And then the voters, because they like the library, would approve it. But it made it difficult to budget for those huge fluctuations. This memorandum, through a cooperative effort, would move this allocation away from a voted appropriation and insert it directly into the budget. By inserting it into the budget, it gives both the library and the municipality some confidence and some stability in that number. And the governing body, the board, the select board, would be involved in finalizing that number before it went to the voters, not just sitting back and being impacted by a petition and a voted appropriation. So I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides. There's stability in it. And it allows us to talk about why it might be changed and how we might address that. And I think it would be normal to, and the memorandum covers this, it'd be normal to allow for escalations over time or reductions depending on the situation. But it makes it simpler for everybody, and we all get to be involved in the discussion early instead of at the end of the process. So that's my comment.
One of the other pieces that came up out of this discussion was representation on the trustee board. And they were agreeable to that also. So that we might have a volunteer that's willing to serve in that position. Which would be great because it would give us information, help us understand information.
It would allow us to be involved in the conversation even earlier than the request coming to us. Bill, if you're going to speak, could I ask you to go to the podium?
Is this memorandum just talking about process, or is it starting with a base number and then an escalator clause?
Base number and escalator.
Pardon?
Base number and an escalator. Right there.
Yeah, we should probably,
The base number is for next year's budget will be 355,000. And then it'll go up or down with the overall general fund budget that the town has. So
did we read the memorandum? So everybody, you want me to read it?
Yeah, that's your business.
Okay. The agreement by and between the town of Manchester, from here on out, a municipal corporation and the Manchester Community Library, MCL, a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation, is made on this date, October 21st, 2025, in the town of Manchester, Vermont. Whereas both parties would like to enter into an agreement that would provide mutual good and valuable considerations, the parties hereby agree to the following terms. The town agrees to include MCL's yearly funding request in its annual general fund budget, which is prepared by the town manager and then the select board and requires approval by the Manchester voters at the annual town meeting or at a specially warned meeting. MCL agrees that their annual request will reflect the same increase or decrease that is represented in the town's general fund budget. For example, if the town's overall fiscal year FY budget increases by 3% from the previous year's general fund budget, then the MCL request would be the same 3%. MCL reserves the right to conduct a separate capital fund campaign for future large-scale capital projects, which are outside the scope of their normal budget. This would not affect this agreement. This agreement would become effective with the 2027 fiscal year general fund budget and will remain in effect for 3 years through the FY 2029 general fund budget. The MCL budgeted amount to be included in the FY 2027 town general fund budget will be $355,000. After fiscal year 29, ending on June 30th, 29, both parties must individually agree to opt in for a 3-year renewal. A written 1-year advance notice of non-renewal must be delivered to the other party prior to the renewal date if either party wants to opt out. By incorporating MCL's annual request for funding into the town's general fund budget, MCL agrees not to submit a separate voter appropriations request to the voters of Manchester. The town agrees to support the MCL funding request during the budget review process and when presented to the Manchester voters. Signed, Town of Manchester and the Manchester Community Library.
That answered both of my questions and I urge you to approve it.
Thank you, Bill. Scott, relative to the starting figure, how was that established?
We put out a number, they came back with a little slightly higher number and, we put that number in.
And-
It's 6%.
6%. That was my follow-up. Thank you.
There were a lot of meetings. It wasn't just a.
Oh, no, I realize that. I know a lot of work went into this and it's, I think it's a pretty good product.
If we do have a representative from the select board on their board, when would that start? With the agreement? Yeah, so that's,
With the agreement, as soon as
yeah.
we sign the agreement. And we would welcome that. I would just reiterate that partnership, that's part of this for us, is having representation from the select board on the library board.
As part of this discussion and action, would we appoint a member?
It would be separate from the agreement. So I would suggest you approve the agreement and then you can appoint.
At a subsequent meeting or?
You can do it tonight.
Okay, that was my question. Can we do it this evening? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this agreement between the Manchester Community Library and the town of Manchester.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
Only to say I'm very, very happy that this is happening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Sounds like a
Great.
confidence. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's 5-0. And probably included in the motion should have been who's going to sign it. Would it be the town manager?
Yeah, it's just town of Manchester, so
Yeah. Um,
you're all right.
I'm comfortable with
And who's signing it from the library? They're both here.
that.
Can I make a nomination, Mr. Chairman, for a representative to the MCL from the select board?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to nominate Heidi Chamberlain to serve as the representative from the select board on the MCL board.
Thank you. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No,
Another board.
no good deed goes unpunished. Thank you.
We should.
And if you're willing, you can sign it now.
It's a big deal.
Excited.
Yeah, very exciting.
Congratulations. Lot of work. Lot of work. I'll make that life a lot easier. Abstain from voting, being on the board.
Oh, I don't know. Did Heidi abstain from that
I
vote?
did, I did not
She
vote.
did. She didn't. Vote. It was 4-0, yeah.
You are allowed to vote for yourself.
I
Oh, She
am?
can.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
Okay, I'll vote for this one. Okay. Well, I didn't see him.
Okay, we have an opening on the Housing Task Force because a member has resigned. Cindy Luce of the Habitat for Humanity has resigned from the Housing Task Force. So and certainly, I would think brought an element of expertise. Do you
It certainly
think,
wasn't because she didn't like the work. She has
Yeah.
a lot on her plate with Habitat.
and would it make sense to try to get a member on there that had similar expertise?
Yeah, I think someone who has the capacity of housing on that scale or that type of housing is certainly important. We don't have a ton of folks in the community that meet that criteria. But there are definitely some people I think that we could tap into. Because I think there's gonna be a lot of, stuff, which I can talk about later, that there's gonna be a lot moving on the Housing Task Force in a little bit.
So we're in receipt of a resignation letter that was addressed to you. Does that need to be accepted or do we just automatically?
No. We haven't. Just.
So the next step would be to, I mean, as of this point, we're letting people know that there's an opening and.
Right. And we can leave that open until we get nominations or
Yeah.
people are interested.
Applications or whatever. Very good. Anything else under the, member resigning from the housing task force? If not, we're all the way up to town manager updates.
Wow.
So the Verizon communication facility, which is also known as the cell tower at Hunter Park. So we're going through a merit hearing and I didn't realize, and I don't think the board realized what that meant at the time, because we sent in a letter opposing it based on our zoning and visibility, basically. Didn't fit into the town plan that way. And we thought really that was the extent of our opposition, what we could do for the Public Utility Commission. But now it's become this merit hearing, and talking to Merrill Bent about what that means is basically we have to defend our position through the legal channels. And so we're incurring costs, and I just thought the board should be aware of that as we go down this path. Opposing the cell tower at Hunter Park.
What did they do with our recommendation to put it in other places?
That was part of the tectonic report.
Right.
We submitted the report, but then they wanted us to defend that in court also, well, in this hearing, and get testimony and things like that, which would have cost thousands of dollars there. So we just basically said, when you've got the report, just take it as is. But anything else, we've got Merrill having to attend this hearing on our behalf.
Bill?
I'm a little bit confused because I have received in the mail as an abutter a new proposal where they want to do, I would call them mini towers attached to phone poles. Is that in lieu of the cell tower for Hunter Park?
That was AT&T, but we approved that last meeting.
Okay,
It's basically a telephone replacement. They take one pole out, put the other one in, but it has a canister on top of it.
right.
Very limited area of improvement.
The canister's about the same size as my mind's completely blank.
I've seen it, yeah.
The-
That was a good compromise. They still want to do the cell tower on top of that?
AT&T.
AT&T and the other one's Verizon. So Verizon's still going ahead, I think. Is that what we're?
That's correct.
And if I urge you to then go ahead to continue to oppose the cell tower for Verizon. AT&T's solution, I thought, was a very good compromise. Maybe Verizon should be looking at a similar compromise.
So, is it all right, Mr. Chairman? Next
Yes.
question.
Yep.
In all of our hearings that we had about the cell towers, it's really, what I'm hearing is that there's a big deterrent going up against Verizon or AT&T or any one of these big companies because of exactly what you're saying. It's going to cost a ton of money and you can get embroiled in something for a long time. And they have the resources to wait it out. And meanwhile, the town may not be able to do that. And the big fear was, when do you concede defeat? And then on top of that, the PUC really has overriding decision despite our ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
So is the PUC behind this and they're
They're holding this hearing, right? So,
At the request of Verizon. Like Verizon.
no, at their own request. So I guess they can go down this path when there's opposition. So they did take our opposition seriously enough to create this merit hearing.
I mean, I think we have to go through the hearing process.
We do, and this is gonna start in November and it'll be done by January. So it's not like gonna go out 2 years. We should know how the PUC is gonna vote by the end of January.
Do we have any idea what it may wind up costing us, a range or anything? No.
No. No,
Well,
but we are watching it carefully, and if
I
it
think,
gets extraordinary, I'll let you know.
you know, the municipality is the little guy in this particular confrontation. You know, people always talk about the government stepping on the little guy. Well, we are the little guy, made up of a bunch of other smaller guys. But I think when we make a decision like that, we have incumbent upon us a responsibility to back that decision up within reason. And I think this is probably the right approach to continue to take that.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I don't think we caught it. I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
When I didn't understand the process. I just thought it sent in our opposition and that was.
Yeah, I know. At the time that we did it, to my knowledge, no one had mentioned that there could be a merit.
The person that we brought in as the expert didn't say anything about this as
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chairman, the other thing that comes to mind is that I believe Scott made it very clear that we were in favor of finding a suitable site
Yeah,
and had gone to some length to find other,
Right, we contracted for that study, you know.
right. So I think we have to go back to this and present that point again and not to say that we're
against.
an adversary, we're trying to be adversarial. And so, yeah, definitely think we stay in it. But at a certain point, I've read about other towns that have been destroyed by this process, and I want to make sure that we keep a tight grip on what's going on.
yeah, I take some comfort in knowing that the PUC has gone this extra step to allow us to participate, but then you wonder what their incentive and motive is. If it's just to say, okay, you know, we've given you every opportunity, now we'll make our decision. Yeah, you always are up against those kind of things. So it's-
Well, at least they didn't just slam the door before.
Right.
Having this process.
If the door's gonna slam anyways. Do we need? do we
Don't
need-
give up.
Yeah, I know, I already said I endorsed it going forward to this, so I'm just gonna shut my mouth.
All right, well, I'm not sorry I put it on here to update. The next discussion point is that we have received our legal fees from the door case when we were defending our ordinance in court. We received a check for $20,955, basically. And that included the court awarded attorney fees, 14,700, and court costs of about 1,200, and then the fines of about of exactly $5,000. So, you know, my thought was that we donate the fines, or at least the majority of the fines, take out the town staff costs, maybe $800 to $1,000, and donate the rest to the food cover.
Do we have a legal defense fund or can we
It's funny you brought that up.
given what we just discussed, shouldn't we be putting this actually into something that helps the town?
We have an allocation in our budget.
We do, but
For legal fees.
we do, but
Legal fees, right? But
wouldn't be,
last year, we received a $5,000 fine payment also. And I was talking to Mike today and what happened to that, and basically it went into like miscellaneous revenue. And then, of course, it's washed in the general fund that goes away at the end of June. But Merrill said that some towns have established, if they anticipate ongoing fines as revenue, receiving ongoing fines as revenue, that they establish some sort of reserve fund that they.
a legal defense reserve fund.
Which is funded by revenue from fines.
And if we're going into,
We don't have a lot of them. We really don't.
I think given,
think that makes it.
Given-
like we're in the business of doing that.
yeah, I think given the aspect or the viewpoint of that fine of $5,000 and the effort that Don Door has done for our community in terms of the Thanksgivings and, giving to folks who are in need, I think that's a fantastic way to say, we didn't, shouldn't have to be done this, but here's, we're gonna make sure that this doesn't just go online.
Support that.
Do you need a motion on that?
I just would like consensus, yeah. Don't need more.
So you're saying we don't have a number that you're proposing
It's probably just over $4,000.
of the donation?
Yeah, of a donation to the food company.
Yeah,
So we don't make money off
After we
it.
cover all of our expenses.
yeah.
The balance.
I'm not trying to make money off it, Heidi. I'm trying to afford something I just talked about.
No, I get,
Again, in the
I get
future
it, I get it.
that Could be used towards,
But I think
that
that's a different,
defense.
that should be a different pot of money. I feel like that's,
Well, that can be part of the budget discussion when
Yeah.
we talk about,
and then
New reserve fund.
in what's the word? Unintended consequences. But
I'm supportive.
I'm good with it.
like that.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Looks like thumbs up all around.
Okay,
Motion or is it?
thank you. No, just do it.
Okay.
In the FY 27 budget, we started talking about that today with the library and everything. The department heads have started working on their budget and they have till Friday to submit it to me and then I'll begin my work on it and start going down that path. And I do have one more.
I just want to caution everybody that the budget will reflect a pretty large expenditure item within the budget based on the conversation that we had earlier relative to the library. The impact to the property taxes, because it's being shifted from voted appropriation into the budget, won't be that severe. It'll be 6%. But that number will now show up in the budget. So it's gonna represent a fairly large increase.
So we'll have to have a large asterisk next. to it.
Something in the neighborhood of 5%. So
We can highlight that. We can make it yellow. so people understand it.
And then this coming Monday at 1 o'clock at the Rec Park building, Attorney General Charity Clark is coming, and just for an hour to talk. And so you guys are invited to that. Seth Bongartz is sponsoring this. She was supposed to come a couple weeks ago, but got ill and had to cancel at the last minute. So feel free to come down to the Rec Park if you want to. And one final note, the town clerk's office has gone through some tremendous changes. You ought to pop your head in there and take a look at the vault. They did a tremendous amount of work the last few days, last week. And she acquired some shelving and other vault type of things from Dorset when they were moving into the new building. So she's rearranged that and we had vendors come in and fix things up also. And so it looks nice. The next time you're in the town office, pop your head in and take a look at it. That's all I have, Ivan.
Okay, so, is there any other business here at the table?
I have one thing, which I didn't get to get in here. So over the past month and a half, the Housing Task Force has applied for a pilot program through the state of Vermont as part of the 802 Homes for All program. The first part of this process the first phase started a couple years ago when the housing toolkit was created, which is kind of a workbook of here's how you should be in your community working on housing. And then last year, phase 2 came through and that was focused on working with communities to highlight infill housing areas. So Arlington took advantage of this last year. And the final phase of this project is a all-encompassing project, which would work on identifying those infill projects, but also preparing in collaboration with the community, 10 pre-designed plans that meet all of the state regulations for environmental, all of those pieces. Plus, they would work with us to make sure it fits within the confines of what we're looking for, the aesthetic of a home here in Manchester, and make them so that they are essentially a green light right from the very beginning. And there's use cases in South Bend, Indiana, Kalamazoo, Michigan, that have been very successful in finding this opportunity. So we applied. We went through two rounds of interviewing. Gordon and Peter came in to give a little bit more color on that process. And we were selected as one of the pilot towns, along with Essex Junction and Hartford, Vermont. And what this is also going to be is that they're going to work with us to identify, which I think is great for our, our town plan work, as well as the work that the zoning board or the planning commission wants to do, looking at zoning, what pieces of our zoning may still be a deterrent. Our frontage may be bad, even though our lot coverage is great. So finding those different places. And then ultimately, these plans would be open, like they use a great example of this is like the Sears Roebuck catalog of today, right? When Hillvale was built and those homes were a part of like a modular process, that was kind of how those homes were built, right? And now we have this potential to really kickstart some of that housing, and it's focused on infill projects. So they were very excited to work with Manchester, and it's going to be a year-long process. The kickoff initial meeting is on the November 14th, and they're going to do a virtual infill tour on the 18th. So it's starting a process of just understanding the community, and we are, I think, very excited about the opportunity to be selected in this. So it's just one more piece of a puzzle towards solving a housing solution.
Yeah. Okay, we do have a need. Is there any other business? Seeing none, we do have a need for an executive session. There is a potential for taking some action, or at least providing some information coming out of this executive session. So we will leave the meeting open. And the motion to go into the executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of negotiating or securing real estate, the premature disclosure of which could place the town at a distinct disadvantage.
Can you include Gordon and myself in that meeting? If you want us in there?
Yeah.
That should be part of the motion.
To be part of the motion, we'll include the town manager. And
Can I amend my motion?
You
Without
didn't finish it.
you didn't finish it yet.
Oh, yeah, all right, and I'd like to include the town manager and our assessor, what is?
Oh, that, yeah.
Economic development.
The economic development and assessment.
Second.
We have a second. We're almost out of time. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in executive session. All right. We will leave the meeting open.
Or you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's okay. Okay, of course. Yep, and you can take the to.
Recording stopped.